Somebody asked me if I could show the process of translating Japanese, so here it is! I translate games and anime from Japanese to English, so if that interests you, consider subscribing and keep watching. So I'm using an actual Otome game I translated a while ago as an example, and I have to start off by saying I've changed the character's name to make it less obvious which Otome game this is. I receive my files in Excel, like this, with the character names in column F, the narration text or dialogue in column G, then I type my translations into column H. This isn't the format all of my files come in, but this is the cleanest format I use, and I thought it would be clearer for you guys to see. I'll start off by romanizing the Japanese text in the first row. ハロウィンを迎えるにあたって、私とジャックは彼の国へとやってきていた. So the easiest way to start is to convert all the nouns into English. As you can see, Halloween is a borrowed word and Jack is a non-Japanese name, so those don't really change. But I've added the pronouns me, he, and the words welcome, country, and come. Almost everything else that's in black is what are called particles. In this case, it's o, ni, to, wa, no, and eto. The other words in black we'll get to. In this slide, I translated some of the particles, and those other words in black. So the first thing I changed is niatatte to upon, because of, in order to do, which, yeah, that's a mouthful. Niatatte is one of those grammar-y, phrasey things that is difficult to translate on its own and doesn't really make sense out of context, especially to a person who learned her Japanese through exposure instead of a textbook, but I'll do my best to explain. The phrase niatatte is applied to the verb that comes before it, which in this case is mukaeru, or to receive or welcome. This verb is often associated with an event like a birthday, season, or holiday. So in this context, niatatte means something along the lines of, because X event is about to happen. This will make more sense in the next slide. You may also notice I changed the particle to and. So me to Jack becomes me and Jack. And I changed he no to his, because no is like an apostrophe s, like spring no sun would mean spring's sun, or Sarah no video would mean Sarah's video. This is incidentally the first particle and grammar rule I learned. I also changed eto to towards. This particle applies to the noun that comes before it, which is, in this case, his country. America eto means towards America. You eto means towards you. So in this case, it's towards his country. I also changed the suffix ita to simply make that verb that comes before it past tense. In this case, the verb is yatte kite, which means to travel to. Past tense of that would be arrived. And I realize everything is a jumbled mess right now. Welcome to translating! Okay, this is the slide where I solve the puzzle and rearrange the words so the sentence makes sense. Notice that the first part of the sentence, upon welcoming Halloween, is in the exact opposite word order that it was in Japanese. In Japanese, it was ordered Halloween welcoming upon. Since the particle wo came after Halloween, we know that the verb that comes immediately after is applied to it. In this case, the verb was to welcome. So the phrase Halloween o mukaeru becomes welcome Halloween. Then, that entire thought, welcoming Halloween, has niatatte applied to it. So it's because of or upon welcoming Halloween, ... Still with me? No? Well, too bad. Let's keep going. We're almost there. The me and Jack part stays the same. Yay! But the next part, have arrived in his country, is another word order reversal. In Japanese, the word order was his country, have arrived. The particle wa that came right after me and Jack is a particle you'll see often. It's described as being a topic marker by textbooks. It can be thought of as the ever-tricky verb is or to be. I wa student means I am a student. Eyes wa blue mean eyes are blue. But you'll notice in this sentence there is no R connected to me and Jack. That's because another way of looking at the particle wa is as for X ... My first Japanese teacher taught it that way, and it stuck with me. In this case, it's as for me and Jack, we've arrived in his country. You should almost never literally write out as for ... in your translation, but think of it that way in your mind, and the sentence will make more sense. Okay, and this is the slide where I reword everything to make it flow better and sound more like the sentence was originally written in English instead of Japanese. I look at the sentence as a whole. What's happening? What's important? And I rewrite the sentence as I would write it if I were writing this story in English and I wanted to convey this idea. This is where personal style will come into play, and it's why translations can sound completely different from translator to translator. There are other ways I could have worded this. This might not be the best way to translate or express the idea, but it is a way. For example, it could be implied from this translation that the reason Jack and the speaker are going to his country is to celebrate Halloween, which it isn't. These events are just happening to coincide. I could have also translated this as, with Halloween just around the corner, Jack and I are going to his country. It's a little wordier, though, and the ideas sound a little disjointed. Anyway, you can second-guess yourself a lot in translating fiction, and I often do, but you eventually have to go with your gut. In the rest of the story, it should become clear enough that Jack and the speaker aren't in that country for the sole purpose of celebrating Halloween, so that potential misunderstanding shouldn't be an issue. Also, side note, for Otome games, I'm required to write everything in the present tense as if it's happening to the character right now. That's why I changed arrived to are visiting. And that was just one sentence. Well, it took me several minutes to talk you through all of that. When I'm translating in real time, I read the Japanese sentence for a few seconds, understand it in Japanese, and then spew out my translation in another few seconds. The whole process usually takes less than half a minute. Unless I have to look up a word or wrap my head around how I want to word something, that is. My brain probably does go through some of the steps I laid out for you guys, but it's so fast that I'm not even aware of it. Okay, next sentence. Because this one is in parentheses, it's the main character's thoughts. The romanized sentence reads, Jack no kuni no Halloween wa dentou teki de iroiro to tanoshinda yo ne. Already, if you were paying attention, you probably know what the phrase Jack no kuni no Halloween wa means. Yes, it's as for Jack's country's Halloween, ... Which brings us to phase 2 of the translation. Dentou teki means traditional, and iroiro to means variously. Tanoshii means fun, and the ndayo ne part we'll get to. Since you remember what wa means, you probably already have a general idea of what this sentence means. So this ndayo ne business. Nda is actually a contraction for noda, which, if you're a fan of Fushigi Yugi before it was commercially released, has personal significance to you, but I digress. Anyway, noda is basically something you add to the end of a sentence if you're sure of what you're saying. Japanese is often worded in a vague way. It's part of their culture. They like to remain ambiguous or vague to avoid offending people or being wrong. But if you add noda to the end, it's more like a, yes, I know this to be true kind of thing. The yone is a softer, feminine sort of ending to a sentence. It's kind of like, I know, right? Or you feel me? Or like totally, that sort of feeling. And this is where I put the puzzle together and reword it so it sounds like real English. I put the ndayone sentiments at the beginning of the sentence because the character is remembering something. So I opened with, that's right. As for Jack's country's Halloween, that sounds weird. People don't really talk like that. So it becomes Halloween in Jack's country. Now I added is a big deal, which isn't literally in the original Japanese text, and this is where literal translation purists will get up in arms and say I mistranslated, but stay with me here. I added it because of the iroiro part, which, as you'll recall, means variously. Variously fun doesn't make sense. It's really more along the lines of there's all sorts of fun things. Fun things sounds vague, so I tacked the traditional part onto the end of it and made it a sentence. There's all sorts of fun customs. Anyway, the point is, Halloween in Jack's country is a bigger deal than Halloween in the main character's country, which is Japan. Since most players of this English-translated game won't relate to a main character that has a native Japanese perspective on Halloween, spoiler alert, Halloween is kind of a new thing in Japan. They borrowed it from Western culture and have only really been celebrating it for the past 10 years or so. And since Jack's country is totally fictitious, the point of the sentence is that Halloween is an important part of Jack's country's traditions and culture, and that it's different and more elaborate than what the main character, as in you, the player, is used to. That's where I got the is a big deal idea from. It's not literally spoken in the sentence, but it's implied. Phew! Okay. 彼の実家である城内もハロウィンの飾りで彩られている. You already know 彼の means his, and jikka literally means genuine home or real home, but it usually just means parents' house. So 彼の実家 becomes his parents' house. 城内 literally means castle interior, and kazari means decorations. The plural is implied. The verb irodoru means to color or to decorate, but since the ending ru has been turned into dare, the verb becomes passive. So it becomes is decorated by. So de aru attaches to the thought his parents' house. The subject of the sentence is jonai, or castle interior, so the his parents' house is a modifier for castle interior. It's like the castle interior, which is his parents' house, ... The particle mo means also, or in this case it can mean even, as in even Voldemort loves dancing. The verb ending te iru at the end of irodorare means that it is the present participle form of the verb. And yeah, I just looked up what that grammar rule is in English. I don't know what English grammar rules are called, I just speak English. Okay, let's turn this sentence into proper English now. The whole the castle interior, which is also his parents' house, idea is really wordy, and the reader probably already knows that Jack is a prince and his parents live in a castle. So I went with his family's castle. The phrase decorated with Halloween decorations sounds dumb because the word decorate is used twice, so I went with decorated for Halloween. In hindsight, I think a better translation would have been even his family's castle is decorated for Halloween, and hell, maybe that's how I translated it originally when I did this job months ago, but is also still works, and I'm too lazy to go back and fix the image in MS Paint, so I'm sticking with it. Our next cell is the first part of the sentence, Rouka o yukkuri aruite iru to. Rouka means hallway, yukkuri means slowly, and aruite is the present participle form of to walk, so is walking or walking. In this case, to doesn't mean and. To is very confusing, by the way. It can mean many different things. In this case, it's as I ... So it's as I slowly walk down the hallway ... Finishing that thought, we have orenjiro no hana ga main de tsukawarete ita flower arrangement. Yeah, I misspelled that. Ga men ni haitta. Orenjiro literally means orange-colored. Hana means flowers, plural is implied here again. Main and flower arrangement are already in English. Tsukau is to use, me is eyes, again, plural implied, and haitta is entered. So, since tsukau is in the form tsukawareta, it's the same as with irodorareru. Yep, passive tense. So, is used. The phrase entered my eyes is an idiom for saw, so I saw flower arrangements instead of flower arrangements entered my eyes. That sounds like a horror movie. Main, in this case, is a great example of an English word that actually means something else. When the English word main is used in Japanese, it usually means the main focus, or highlighted, or featured. This is where mostly comes from. When I clean up the sentence and make it real English, I cut the wordiness and shorten the thought to, I see orange flower arrangements everywhere. Yes, if I were to be more literal, and again, the literal purists are probably screaming at their computer screens again, it would be more correct to say something like, I saw flower arrangements that feature orange flowers, but then I'd be saying flower twice in a sentence, and that's very sloppy and wordy. So I combined the ideas into orange flower arrangements. Okay, next cell. The main character is thinking again in parentheses. Flower arrangement mo Halloween shio nanda na. The mo particle is just like the one before. It means also or even. Shio means specified or specific. The nanda na is that sort of noda idea again. The yes, I'm sure of this thing I'm observing. So in proper English, wow, even the flower arrangements are Halloween themed. Next cell. Kao o hokorobase nagara sukoshi magatte ita hana no muki o naoshite iru to. So for the new vocab, kao means face, hokorobu means to smile, sukoshi means a little bit, mangaru means to twist, muki means the direction something is facing, and naosu means to fix. For the grammar, the baseru ending of hokorobu becomes passive tense. So when combined with kao, or face, o, it becomes make my face smile. Nagara, when added to the end of a verb, means while this verb is happening. So the entire verse thought is, while smiling is happening to my face. You'll also notice the to at the end of this cell. It's the same as I ... thought that we encountered a few cells ago in as I walk down the hallway ... So in less sloppy English, we have as I make my face smile, fixing the slightly twisted flowers as facings. Yeah, that sounds great. The literal purists would love it. But I don't. So in good English, it's as I smile and fix the slightly askew flowers instead. Now let's finish the thought with ushiro kara kata no tari ni ude ga mawatte kita. Ushiro means behind, kara means from whatever word immediately precedes me, which in this case is behind, so it's actually from behind. Kata means shoulder, atari means near the area or in that neck of the woods sort of thing. Ude means arms, and mawaru means encircle. The particle ga comes right after the object, arms in this case, so it means arms are the thing that's encircling. For the literal translation, arms encircled near my shoulders from behind. It's technically correct, but a little confusing and not at all romantic. We're supposed to make the girls swoon here, not scratch their heads as they try to picture the body positions. So I changed it to, a pair of strong arms embraced me from behind. Now yes, strong was never in the original sentence, but hear me out. The arms are wrapping around her from behind, at her shoulder level. The reason they're specifying the whole shoulder level thing is to show that the person hugging her is tall. In Japanese culture, women generally want their dream men to be tall. This is also true in Western culture, but we also love strong men. Tall is really super in Japan. The whole, his arms are wrapping around my body at shoulder level thing just doesn't work in English. It just sounds weird. But what's the real point of this sentence? It's not to map out exactly where his hugging arms are, though details in romance novels are important to help the reader fantasize. Yes, fantasy. The main point of this sentence is to give the reader the tingly feeling of, ooh, hot guy I'm dating is surprising me with a romantic hug from behind. It's the feeling of the hug that matters, not the mechanics of it. Plus, I don't know, imagining a guy hugging me from behind with his arms around what's basically my collarbone? It doesn't feel that loving. It just feels awkward. I could have gone for hands on the shoulders and a kiss on the top of the head from behind, but see, there I go. Second-guessing myself again. Strong arms, embrace from behind, sticking with it. Moving on. 驚きつつ振り返ると、ジャックの顔が視界に入った. Now, if you have been paying attention, you already know what the second half of the sentence means. Hint number 1, the particle to, Jack no kao ga, and 視界に入った have already been covered. Hint number 2, 視界 is sort of another way of saying me. Remember meに入った? So, 驚き means surprise. Adding tsutsu to the end of it makes it while feeling surprise. 振り返る means to turn around. As I turn around in surprise, Jack's face enters visibility. It works, but I think we can do better. So yeah, no more face. Oftentimes Japanese will use the expression so-and-so's face, like I want to see your face, or I see your face, and it actually just means I want to see you, or I see you. So she's not seeing Jack's face, she's just seeing Jack. The whole enters my vision thing is also weird, so I went with, and there's Jack. Ooh, finally some dialogue. Nani shiteru no? Nani means what, and shiteru means doing. The no in this case is a softer and often feminine way of ending a sentence. This is Jack speaking, by the way. He's a softer kind of guy. Because he's being gentle and playful, I translated this as, what you doing? I also took away the ellipse at the beginning of the sentence because I'm instructed to never start a sentence with an ellipse unless it's the second part of a sentence from a previous cell. And the main character replies, このお花の向きを直してたんだけど. The prefix o just makes the noun that follows it extra polite or important. You may remember hana no muki means the flowers facing, and naoshite means to fix, so you probably already know what she's saying. But on to the finer points of this sentence. Kono means this or these. The whole nandakedo thing at the end literally means this is definitely the case, however, ... Japanese people often end their sentences with however, ... and it goes back to the whole vague ambiguity thing they like. It implies, this is the case, but I could be wrong, or this is the case, but it's not really a big deal, or I was doing this thing, ... Why do you ask? But as you'll see in my final translation, it can also have an, oh, just ... feel to it. And fixing the facing of something sounds weird. We have a verb for that, adjusting. So, oh, just adjusting these flowers. So that was just a sample of how I translate Japanese. I didn't really mean for this to be an instruction on how Japanese grammar works, and I realized that everything might have seemed jumbled and fast to people who haven't taken any Japanese classes. But hopefully this revealed the thought process of a translator at least a little bit. Next time you read or listen to something that's been translated, consider the immense work and thought that went into it. as well as the immense thought and work that went into making this video. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. And if you want to find an easier way to communicate with me and ask me more questions that I don't cover in my videos, consider adding me on Twitter, @SarahKTranslate. I like making videos about freelancing and connecting with other freelancers and other aspiring freelancers. And your engagement really inspires me, so thank you for your continuing support. Bye!